Our topic is hormones, and so the first objective is B.6.1, which is outline the production and function of hormones in the body. So hormones are basically chemical messengers which are made in the endocrine gland, and examples of this are proteins and steroids. And so the target cells are basically they're where the hormones respond to these different signals that they get from the body. So there's about 8 different hormones that we need to cover, and the first one is the pituitary gland. The name of the hormone that the pituitary gland secretes is the antidiuretic hormone, which is called ADH. It's a short peptide, and the target cells are in the kidney. And the function is basically to increase water uptake, and it raises the concentration of urine, and it also controls the osmotic potential of blood and maintains homeostasis and regulation in the body, in the kidneys. Also, the thyroid gland is another example of a hormone, and the name of the hormone for this is thyroxine, and it's a modified amino acid, which is basically like a protein. And the target cell is all cells, so this basically it's secreted throughout the entire body. And the functions of this is to regulate the basal metabolic rate and for growth and development, which is why it's around the whole body. The next hormone is the adrenal gland, and the name of this hormone is aldosterone, and this is a steroid, and the target cells for this one are also the kidney. And the functions of this is it increases the uptake of sodium in the kidneys, and it also raises the blood pressure. So too much of this hormone would create a very high blood pressure, which would be very unhealthy to the human. The next gland is the adrenal medulla, and the name of this hormone is adrenaline, which most of us know as giving you like a rush. And the function of this is to increase the rate or force of the heartbeat of the blood to the heart. And this is a modified amino acid structure. And the target cells for this are the brain, the muscles, and the circulatory system, because the heart sends impulses, which is why it's part of the circulatory system. Next we have the pancreas, and the name of the hormone that the pancreas secretes is insulin, which is a type of protein, and you can probably remember insulin from the disease diabetes. Too much or too little of this can cause diabetes. The target cells for this hormone are basically all cells, however, it's found mostly in the liver. And the function is to increase the uptake and to be utilized by cells and to decrease the blood glucose level. And it also increases the amount of glucose to glycogen conversion in the liver. So if you have too much of it, then that means that you would have too much glycogen in your body, which could be very unhealthy. Also, there's the the next one is the ovary, and so the hormone name that this one produces is estrogen, and this is a type of steroid, and it's targeted in many different parts of the body. However, it's mostly targeted in the uterus. And the functions of this is the growth and development of a placenta and fetus, and it also helps in development of secondary female characteristics, which is why this hormone is only found in women. And the last gland that I'm going to talk about are the testes, and the hormone name for this is testosterone, and it has a steroid structure type. And the target cells for this is many parts of the body. However, the function is mostly for male secondary sexual characteristics, and that is the reason why you're going to find it mostly in males. All right, next Shima is going to tell you about chemistry.
All right, so the next objective I'm going to be talking about is topic B.6.2, compare the structures of cholesterol and sex hormones. So cholesterol and sex hormones, they're both steroid-based hormones. What this essentially means is that they have the same common structure of a steroid, which is 4 fused hydrocarbon rings. And so essentially that's the base structure for cholesterol and the sex hormones. However, so the different steroids have different functional groups attached to their 4-ring backbone, which I will further explain. So first, going into cholesterol. Cholesterol is the most common steroid. Its molecular formula is C27H45OH. They're essentially the crucial elements of cell and brain tissue. There are 3 main regions. There's the hydrocarbon tail, the ring structure region, and the hydroxy group. The hydrocarbon tail is only made up of hydrogen and carbon atoms only, and it's nonpolar, so it's insoluble in water. The ring structure, which is essentially the 4 hydrocarbon rings themselves. So there's 3 6-carbon rings, and there's 1 5-carbon ring, and they're nonpolar, so it's insoluble in water. Then the last part of cholesterol is the hydroxyl group, or the OH group. The OH group is essentially what makes cholesterol an alcohol, and it is soluble in water, so it's therefore polar. Furthermore, cholesterol, so looking at cholesterol molecule as a whole, cholesterol is not water soluble enough to dissolve in the blood, so it travels via lipoproteins. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is sex hormones, which essentially influence the reproductive system. They contain the 4 hydrocarbon ring structure as cholesterol. However, they differ in the functional groups. There are essentially 3 types. The first one are the male sex hormones, or androgens, and the specific example I'm going to be talking about is testosterone. The second one is estrogen, which is a female sex hormone, and the example I'll be talking about is estradiol. And the last one is another female sex hormone, so I'm going to be talking about would be progesterone, which is the third example. So sex hormones, so first looking at the androgen, or specifically looking at testosterone. So it essentially contains the 4 hydrocarbon ring, but the main difference that differs from cholesterol is that it has a OH group on the first carbon ring, and it has an O oxygen double bonded to the last carbon, and then there's also a double bond within the last carbon ring itself. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is estrogen. And estrogen, similarly to cholesterol and testosterone, it contains the 4 hydrocarbon skeletal structure. However, it contains a benzene ring in the last hydrocarbon ring, and it contains 2 alcohol groups, which is why it's estrogen, or also known as estradiol. The last structure I'm going to be talking about is progesterone, and it also contains the 4 hydrocarbon main ring, except there's a ketone on the first carbon ring, and there's a double bond in the last carbon ring. So now to just summarize really fast. So cholesterol, it essentially contains the common structure of a steroid. There's the 4 hydrocarbon ring, and it has a tail of hydrogen and carbons off the first ring, and then OH off the last ring. And then these 3 sex hormones. Testosterone, it contains a OH group on the first carbon, and then it has a oxygen double bonded to the carbon on the last carbon ring, and then it also contains a double bond on the last ring as well. Estradiol, it contains a benzene ring on the last carbon ring, and then it contains 2 OH groups on the first and last ring. And then progesterone, it contains a ketone on the first carbon ring, and then a double bond within the last carbon ring, and then oxygen double bonded to the carbon ring. So now up to Daniel, who will talk about the next objective.
Hi, so the next objective is B.6.3, and the point of it is to be able to describe the mode of action of oral contraceptives. And what that means is it's better known commonly as the pill for women, and it's a form of birth control that prevents getting pregnant. And the way this works is the pill contains hormones called follicle-stimulating hormones and luteinizing hormones, and these hormones in the female body control ovulation, which is the releasing of an unfertilized egg into the ovaries, from the ovaries. And the oral contraceptives contain estrogen and progesterone, which Shima talked about already, and together those suppress the secretion of the FSH and LH, or the follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And because those 2 hormones are what controls ovulation, by inhibiting the secretion of it through the increased estrogen and progesterone intake, the female won't ovulate and an egg won't be released. This means that she can't get pregnant, and that's very basically how the pill works. And morning after pills work in the same way, except they have higher concentrations of the hormones, and these are not intended for common use. They're just meant for emergency use in unintended circumstances. And the importance of this is that hormones are really what controls almost all of your bodily functions, and by taking these supplements, you can control what your body does and when. And now Andrew's going to talk about the use of steroids.
So the objective B.6.4 is to outline the use and abuse of steroids. So steroids have many uses, and the things known as hormone steroids are synthetic hormones that are used for medical purposes because of the properties that the individual hormones provide for the body. An example of where they'd be useful will be hormone replacement therapy, which is most commonly used with estrogen in women who have had surgeries or such, and they are used to replace the hormones produced in the body prior to menopause. Also, hormone replacement therapy can be used to treat breast cancer and other debilitating diseases, as well as in contraceptive pill formulations. Anabolic steroids, a different type of synthetic steroid, promotes tissue growth, such as testosterone promoting the growth of muscles. And this is used medically in the treatment of the testes and breast cancer, and used medically to help in gaining weight after some diseases. Also, some issues with steroids and their abuse. Modified synthetic forms of the hormones have been abused by athletes for many, many years in order to build up their body muscles and supposedly also to increase endurance. This mainly deals with the hormone testosterone and its synthetic forms because testosterone is directly related to the growth of muscles. And anabolic steroids can also result in other side effects as well, such as changes in hair distribution, sexual desire, and fertility, as well as causing damage to the liver because synthetic hormones are toxic to the liver. And they also can increase the risk of liver cancer. Their use is banned by most sporting bodies, and regular drug testing is now widespread. So this is the outline of the use and abuse of steroids, and that concludes our presentation.